It's funny, Sarah and I were talking about this last night a little bit, and Sarah loves application. You know, how many of you love to walk away with like 1, 2, 3 things that you can try to put into practice? You're going to be sorely disappointed today, okay? Because that isn't always there. And she's like, well, but you could make it this. And I'm like, but that's not what it says. That's not what it's trying to do. Sometimes it's just so we can have an understanding. And so maybe our application is just going to be truly understanding what Jesus wants us to know. And then that can change our lives because it affects our whole attitude and our whole perspective. And so there's our application. But let's go ahead and read this. We're in Luke chapter 6. We're going to be starting at verse 17. And you will see some words magically pop up on the screen as I begin reading. And I'll, like I said, fill in as I go. So the Word of God says, and he came down, that's Jesus, he came down with them and stood on a level place. He had just spent the entire night in prayer. He chose his 12 out of the maybe 100, 150 disciples, the people following him. He just chose 12 whom he named as his apostles. And the word apostle really kind of means a sent one. Okay? And so he sends these apostles out. And so he's coming down off the mountain where he's chosen these 12 apostles, but all the rest of his followers are still there with him. So he came down with them, that's the 12, and stood on a level place. Now, with a great crowd of his disciples and a great multitude of people from all Judea and Jerusalem and the seacoast of Tyre and Sidon. So people came from all over. So you got 3 categories of people. You got the 12 who are the apostles who are, well, we would love to say they're really strong and really devout and really faithful, but they're really no different than the other disciples because they fall and blunder all the time, and we see that over and over again as we look at their lives. But you have the 12 who are kind of Jesus' inner circle. And then you have maybe 100, 120, 150 other people who are people that have been following Jesus, listening to his words because something grabbed them. Their hearts were touched. And then you have the others who are bringing the sick, bringing the diseased, bringing people with all kinds of struggles. And they're coming because they've heard about a man that does miracles, and they just want to check it out. And that's the multitude that is coming surrounded him. So 3 different groups of people, and Jesus is speaking to them. They came to hear him, I'm in verse 18 now, who came to hear him and to be healed of their diseases. And those who were troubled with unclean spirits were cured. So Jesus is doing miracles, and he's casting out demons, and he's healing the sick, and just pouring into people. And all the crowd sought to touch him, for power came out from him and healed them all. Now, this did not always happen, but apparently something was going on here, something very powerful, where people were even just close to his presence. And I mean, if they could just touch him, power just oozed out. Have you ever gone by something like an electrical current of some sort, and your hair raised, the hair on your arms perked up? I know ladies don't understand that phenomenon, but and I don't understand the other phenomenon of hair perking up. But have you ever experienced anything like that? Sorry, I just spit on y'all. I'm glad no one's sitting there. Anyone ever experienced something like that? Okay, 3 people. Wow. Y'all need to get out more. You need to experience life. It's a pretty incredible thing. You can walk by something. How about this? Have you ever done this? Taken a balloon, rubbed it on, like on your shirt, and then put it up next to your hair, and you know how your hair sticks out? Well, there's power like oozing out of you. Well, Jesus just had this power oozing out of him. And people were just in his presence, and they could sense it and feel it. And if they could just touch him, it came right into them. And he received it. Pretty incredible stuff. And so Jesus is doing miracles and healing. But we've heard him say over and over again, he didn't just come to heal. He didn't just come to do these miracles. He came to teach, and he came to share. And so what we're going to get into now, starting at verse 20, is basically his sermon, Jesus' sermon. And you might hear me read it, and in Luke, it might only take me a few minutes, and you might go, you should preach like Jesus did, because it only took 3 minutes for you to read his sermon. This is not his whole sermon. I guarantee you, these are just some of the fine points. And he just talked, and he talked, and sometimes he talked all afternoon. You want me to preach like Jesus? I'll be happy to. He talked all afternoon. And they were like, whoa, we didn't bring any dinner, but we just want to keep listening to you. And so he does miracles, and he feeds them all. Incredible stuff when Jesus would teach and preach to the people. So here's one of the sermons. It's a sermon that shares some things that we call the Beatitudes, because it says, blessed are, okay? There's also another sermon in the Gospel of Matthew, and I think it's good for us to take note of that because we need to compare a little bit. Now, some theological scholars believe that this is Luke sharing his account from the Sermon on the Mount, which is Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7, and is a little bit larger and would take me 10 to 12 minutes just to read the fine points, so you can imagine how long he went that day. So some people think that this is the exact same situation, the exact same event. We don't know. Let me ask you a question. Does it matter? Absolutely not. So let's move on. It could be the same situation. It could be a completely different situation where he's teaching a similar thing. Because his message, as he went from city to city, see, I have really one group of people that gathers together every week, and so we keep moving, and we keep moving. But if you're brand new, what did you miss last week, or the week before, or the week before, or the week before, okay? Jesus had a new crowd of people and new cities all the time. I guarantee you, he didn't just have a canned message, no, but I guarantee you that he was proclaiming the same thing multiple times in multiple locations. So I think, personally, Luke is pulling from one of these accounts. Jesus is now teaching on a level place. Some translations say a plain, not a plane in the air, a plain like a flat area. But it could be the Sermon on the Mount, we just don't know. So let's move on in verse 20. And he, that's Jesus. And Jesus lifted up his eyes. Now he turns his attention on his disciples and said. So there's all of these people that he's speaking to. But now he's looking and he's targeting the ones, because he knows their hearts, the ones who are truly following him. The ones who it's more than just a miracle. It's more than just you healed my brother or you healed my wife or whatever. It's, I need what you have to offer, and I think there's something about you, even though they may not have known at this point that he was the Son of God. Although at this point, they're starting to be curious because he's revealed so much already. So he lifted up his eyes. He's looking at his disciples. Now he is speaking to those who are following him. And he said these words, "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who are hungry now, for you shall be satisfied. Blessed are you who weep now, for you shall laugh. And blessed are you when people hate you, when they exclude you and revile you and spurn your name as evil." Pretty powerful words here. Spurn your name as evil on account of the Son of Man. Rejoice in that day and leap for joy. For behold, your reward is great in heaven. For so their fathers did to the prophets. And I'm going to stop right there for a moment. I'm wondering, did we notice anything a little bit odd about Jesus' words when we think about the world that we live in right now? Blessed are you who are poor. Blessed are you who are hungry now. Blessed are you who weep. And blessed are you when people hate you and exclude you and revile you and spurn your name as evil. Is that what the world says? Anybody? Are those things that we actively pursue as human beings living in this world? We want a good job, right? So we can be poor, right? And we want someone to rob us so we will be poor. And we want to give everything away so that we can be as poor as possible. And we want to go to our boss and say, boss, I've been working a lot of hours here. And I've been making way too much money. You need to take 3/4 of my salary away because I have food to eat every single day. And I can pay my electric bill. And that's just not right. So would you please take 3/4 of my salary away. I'm begging you. I know I'm asking a lot here, but I'm begging you. Will you please do that? Is that what we do in this world? No. What do we ask our boss for? I've been working a lot, and I really need a little bit more, and I need a little bit more. And Jesus just takes what we have and turns it completely upside down. Now, I think we got to understand these words, though, because a lot of people hear them and say they think, okay, if someone is poor, if someone is mourning, if someone is hungry, and if someone is hated and their name is spurned as evil, they're automatically in the kingdom. Is that true? No. Let's be careful here. Let's understand Jesus' words, and so many people, I think, misunderstand. So we want to just look at this so we can understand it, and then we're going to look at the counter words, the woes. And we're going to wrap up there. So Jesus says, blessed are you who are poor. Does anyone remember a couple weeks ago, I talked about the word poor? Because Jesus preached out of the book of Isaiah. And he said that he had come for the poor, the captive, the blind, and the oppressed. And basically what he was trying to do is point out to the people that that's us. We need to recognize that we are the poor, the captive, the blind, and the oppressed. And when we recognize that, salvation is near. When we recognize that, our heart is ready to receive the grace of God. Anyone remember what I said about the word poor? Do we have anyone that remembers anything about poor and the condition of the person described as poor? We have anybody here? Should I ask Lacey? Okay, right. One hand is over their eyes because it was a posture of shame. It was a word described of beggars. It was not a word described as someone who just has a little bit of money. It's a word described as someone who has absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. There is not a one little small copper coin, one mite to their name. Okay, not a penny to their name. And so with one hand, they kind of are covering their faces and their head is down. And where's their other hand? In the position of what? A beggar who would receive anything that someone would offer them. That's the same word we've got here. Not just blessed are those who have a little bit and can barely make it by. Not just blessed are those who don't meet the standard of living or whatever it is. Blessed are the poor. Blessed are those who have absolutely nothing. Now, I believe with all my heart that first and foremost, this is not speaking about a physical condition, okay? This is speaking about a spiritual condition. This is speaking about the person who recognizes, I am bankrupt. I have absolutely nothing. I cannot earn my way to God. I can't take my one little mite or my penny and buy my way to God by giving it away. I can't do anything to earn His love or His grace. I can just sit here with my face down because I'm in the presence of God, hold my hand out and say, Lord, be merciful to me, a sinner, because I have nothing to offer you. And then I'm ready to receive the grace of God. So when Jesus says, blessed are you who are poor, we go back to Matthew and the Sermon on the Mount, and Matthew gives us a few more words. And he said, Jesus said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And so, while God wants us to have is this spirit that is humble, this spirit that recognizes we are bankrupt without Him. And that's what it means to be poor. So, good news. You don't have to go to your boss and ask him to take 75% of your salary away. If you really wanted to do that, you'd have to ask him to take 100% of your salary away if you wanted to be truly poor. Because then you'd have nothing. That's right. And He says, yours is the kingdom of God. So He wants us to come spiritually poor, bankrupt, ready to receive. The second thing, blessed are you who are hungry. We got the same thing going on here. He isn't just saying, wow, if you don't have any food to eat, you're automatically in the kingdom. You're saved. You're in heaven. Now, Jesus loved these people because they came to Him in flocks and droves. Okay, they surrounded Him. They were often poor. They were often hungry. They were often the leper or the beggar or the needy. The lame man paralyzed on the mat that had to be brought in by friends because he couldn't do anything in his life. And so they are those people. Jesus welcomes these people because many of them are more open because they recognize they have absolutely nothing. But this is not so much a physical condition, it's a spiritual condition. Blessed are those who are hungry. The Gospel of Matthew says, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, who want more, who recognize I'm a sinful man. I need something. I need forgiveness. I need grace. I need what this guy, Jesus, has to offer. For you shall be satisfied. The next one, blessed are you who weep now, for you shall laugh. Blessed are you who weep now. That's not necessarily talking about we've experienced loss, a family member, a loved one, and we're grieving. It really, I think, again, speaking spiritually, not physically, means that we recognize our sinful condition, and it drives us to our knees where all we can do is weep before God and hold our hand out as a beggar and receive what He has to offer. And so once again, Jesus is hitting this message over and over and over. Why? So we won't miss it. And so we won't become too proud and too dependent upon ourselves and I'm good. I can make it today. I'm not hungry. I'm not poor. I'm not even weeping. And He says, no, I want you to recognize that you're poor and you're hungry, and those who weep because you've recognized your sin has separated you from God. For you shall laugh when the forgiveness and grace of God fills you and when you experience the kingdom of heaven. And that's a thing in the future, and it's right here and right now as well. And then finally, the fourth, blessed are you when people hate you. This is a really, really tough one. When they hate you and exclude you and revile you and spurn your name as evil on account of the Son of Man. That's key. It's on account of the Son of Man. Not you just went out and killed somebody's brother or wife and they hate you and spurn your name as evil. No, it's because of your faith and belief in Jesus Christ. We were in the home of some people from Israel on Friday night, and they talked about the persecution that is going on of their brothers and sisters, of their Christian brothers and sisters in Jerusalem, and what ISIS is trying to do, calling on the Muslims in Jerusalem to identify where the Christians are so that they can be exterminated, so that they can be removed completely. Not just taken to another area, but so they can be killed. And I don't know everything that's going on. There's a mess in this world. But Jesus said, when you're hated because of your love for me, you're blessed because you've recognized that the love that the world has to offer isn't going to get you anywhere, but the love that I have to offer you is all that you need. Did we just sing that? All of you is more than enough for all of me, for every hurt and every need. You satisfy me, and all I have in you is more than enough. Powerful words that Jesus wants us to acknowledge and recognize. And so that's what He's speaking to the people. He's saying, here's how you come into the kingdom of heaven. But I think there is a secondary meaning. He also wants us to recognize that we there is beauty in being poor and hungry and weeping. And when we recognize this, we no longer want the things of the world. We start to want the things of the kingdom more. And so he goes into the woes, just so we make sure and understand. He says, "But woe to you who are rich, for you have received your consolation." Now, we got to stop here. Does that mean that everyone that has wealth has only received it in this world and has no inheritance in the kingdom of heaven? Is that what that means? No. Is that what some people preach? Yes, some, but that's not correct. That's not what Jesus is saying. Jesus had followers who had means, who supported him. I mean, Levi, when he came on board, I guarantee he had lots of money. Maybe he gave it back to some of the people, but he still had some. I guarantee you he used it. And then some of the ladies that supported Jesus' ministry, they had money, they had means, and so they supported him. Abraham was rich. Lot was rich. You can be rich and be faithful as well. But woe to you who are rich. So what does that mean? Woe to us if all we are concerned about is the riches that the world has to offer. If that's it, then woe to us, because we missed it. Because there's something else, there's something more powerful, there's something greater. And so if we as Christians have gotten a little bit too involved, we want to hold on to our money a little bit tightly. That's why those emails that I sent out, talking about generosity, talking about giving, and it isn't just a community of hope. I hope you saw that. Man, give to an organization that has a need. Give to a person that has a need. Give to a family that has a need. Carl just shared an opportunity with his community group. We'll make sure it gets out. If you know someone that has a need, I pray that God's Spirit moves you to be generous. And I pray that he does that in myself and Sarah always and forever as well. Because woe to us if we're rich, and if we hold on to our money, and if we just want it for ourselves, and we want more. So we can get more stuff. It says, woe to you, because then you've got your consolation. Because it isn't about the stuff. It's not about we're driving along and we're in our jalopy and we're behind a nice car and we go, oh, wow. Oh, what it would be like to drive that. That isn't going to bring us satisfaction. Jesus is going to bring us satisfaction. Then he says, blessed or woe to you. Sorry, now we're in the woes. Woe to you who are full now, in contrast to blessed are you who are hungry now. Woe to you who are full now, for you shall be hungry. When we have all that the world has to offer us, and we see this sometimes in Hollywood, and we see this with people who have way too much, they're never satisfied and they just want more. They are now hungry. They're hungry for more. Woe to you who laugh now, for you shall mourn and weep. If we never recognize our sinful condition and we just go through life as a happy, jolly mess, we're going to mourn and weep one day, because one day we're going to recognize that there's a holy God and we didn't acknowledge that. And then the final one, and this is, if I can just speak this is the hardest one for me. This is the hardest one for me. Of these four woes, this is my biggest struggle. Because he says, woe to you when people speak well of you, for so their fathers did to the false prophets. Now, once again, this doesn't mean if someone says, that's just Susan, Maury, if someone says, I just love Susan, I just love Maury. What an incredible person they are. Does that disqualify you for the kingdom of heaven? No, absolutely not. People spoke well of Timothy. People loved him. People spoke well of Bartholomew. People spoke well of the encourager. People can speak well of us, especially as a follower of Jesus Christ. But when we want the applause of the world and the applause of man, and when that's what we're speaking, whoa, danger. I think this is the number one struggle for almost every junior high and high school student I know. At some point, there's going to be that, I just want to be loved by all of them. And maybe we have to work through that. We got to get through that. And maybe some adults struggle with that. And I think I still struggle with that sometimes. I mean, how many of you want people to love you? Anybody? Be honest, raise your hand. Yeah. We kind of want that. And when they don't, oh man, it can rock our world. You don't want that? Good for you, Canaan. Wisdom in this kid, I'm telling you. Y'all are doing something right. Keep it up. Woe to you when people speak well of you, and that's all you want. And that's what you're craving. For so their fathers did to the false prophets, and that's not what it's about. And so if we can just look at this, Jesus once again is reminding us, how does he want us to come to him? Humbly. How does he want us to continue to walk with him? Humbly. What does he want us to pursue? The riches of the world? Yes or no? No. The food the world has to offer? Yes or no? Now, is it okay to be able to have some of that and to enjoy some of that? Does that disqualify you for the kingdom? No, it doesn't. But is that what we pursue? Absolutely not. What? Yeah? Absolutely not. Good job. That's not what we pursue. We pursue what he has to offer. And so I just want to encourage you, look at your life. And I need to look at my life. We still struggle with this. I still struggle with this. And so let's look at our lives and see, how are we matching up with the blesseds and the woes? Are we the tokos? And don't think physically, I don't have a dollar or a dime to my name. Don't think that. But are we the poor in spirit? Are we coming humbly? Not with pride and not boasting, but coming to receive what Jesus has to offer. Are we living that way? Is that what we're modeling for people to see? And then the whole thing about being hungry, or the whole thing about having our full. Blessed are those who are hungry. Are we hungry and thirsty for righteousness, for the things of God and not the things of this world? Is that where we are? Or woe to us if we're just pursuing the things of this world and we have our fill now, because we're going to be hungry later. We're going to recognize that it's never satisfied. And there are movies that kind of describe that kind of a torment, that you have a want for something, a desire for something, and you get it, and then it's never satisfied. And the only show to mock that a little bit was The Simpsons. I don't know if you ever saw the episode. What is, other than beer, what is Homer Simpson's favorite thing to consume other than beer? It's a food item. Donuts. And did you ever see the one where he's by the machine that just keeps stuffing donuts in, and the machine, it's endless supply, and the machine breaks and runs out, and he goes, what? What does he say? More donuts. More donuts. Yeah, they mocked it a little bit, but when we hunger for those things and we have them now, we're never going to be satisfied. Never going to be satisfied. We're always going to want more. Always going to want more. When we mourn and recognize our sinful condition as a child of God, recognize that daily and receive his grace like we did here in this meal. And let's never be too proud and never be too cocky. And let's extend that to others as well, and not judge and condemn, but offer them the grace as well and help them to recognize that they can mourn and grieve and receive his love and his grace too. And then finally, that one that I struggle with, the one that many people struggle with, to want the applause of man. Let's look at our life. Is that what we're seeking? Or are we seeking to truly honor God? Is he our audience? And is he the one that we want to pursue? So there's some application for you. You get to think, and you get to look at your life, and you get to go, how am I doing here? And then you get to say, God, how do I need to change this one area so I can be more like you and live the way you want me to live in the kingdom?